Welcome to Module 1 of Topic 6. Topic 6 is entitled Flow. And Module 1, we're going to look at your values and beliefs. Values and beliefs is something I find incredibly intriguing. My background is in theology, so I have a theology degree and I studied philosophy and theology and predominantly monotheistic religions and ancient Near East culture. And the reason I think this is so interesting is that if you look across things like physics or philosophy or theology, there are lots of things that people the world over believe, but aren't really conscious that they believe these things. And these beliefs drive their behaviors. Let me give you a few examples. Most of us believe that the sun will rise tomorrow. This drives our behavior to go to bed and get up the next day, and we don't think to ourselves, I wonder what's going to happen in the morning. I wonder if the sun will rise. So we have this deep belief that's rooted in the laws of physics that the sun will rise. But we can also have beliefs from a philosophical standpoint. So for instance, we might believe that it's possible for when we communicate and use language, that it's possible for the other person to understand what we mean and that there's some sort of thing happening between us and meaning is conveyed. From the other big one, religion, there's lots of different religious beliefs. There are monotheistic, polytheistic, there's atheistic, agnostic. There's lots of beliefs with regards to in the theological space. And across all of these realms, from physics to philosophy or theology, there are beliefs around metaphysics or physicality. Are people just basically the sum total of their materialistic self, or is there an immaterial aspect to our beings? Now, each one of us, whether or not we are consciously aware of it, have some sort of baseline belief about these really mega things about the nature of reality. If I pressed you on any one of these things, I bet we could get to the point where you said, right, no, this is where I believe. I believe that the sun will rise tomorrow, gravity is a thing. I believe the earth is round rather than flat. I believe that the material is all there is and there's no immaterial element to human beings. And I don't believe that there's any conscious, cognizant being that exists outside of my own awareness. But there could be another person who believed exactly opposite, right? So in this space, we're talking about great big mega beliefs. But what about the more detailed beliefs? What about the beliefs that you have about yourself? What are about the beliefs or values that you hold about the world around you and how you would like things to play out? That's another sort of realm of belief that whether or not you are consciously aware of it, you will have your own personal set of values and beliefs. This first module in Flow is all about bringing those either, perhaps for you, they're really subconscious. So perhaps you kind of already think you know what your beliefs are, but this is just about bringing all those things to the forefront, making sure that those are mapped out so that you can have flow in your life. It's really important that when we're considering our own behaviors and the drivers that we have in our life, that we appreciate that a lot of these things are linked in terms of our own core values and beliefs. Obviously, we are rational, intelligent human beings, but it really is this sort of emotional or visceral element that ends up driving our behaviors. So in this module, there's sort of three things that we're gonna hit on. So the first one is that we're gonna look at how you elicit your values or beliefs. So if you think that you know what they are pretty crystal clear, or if you're not totally sure, let's do the exercise all the same and we might find some surprises. So the first thing is I'm gonna teach you how you elicit your own values and beliefs. The second thing that I'm going to walk you through is how you prioritize those. And again, this might not be something that you initially think is opaque or unclear, but as we go through this exercise, we'll discover if there's any new information there for you. And the third thing that we're going to cover is something called beliefs of excellence. Now, remember in the introduction to this module, I was talking to you about the mega beliefs that humans can hold. And then there was that sort of other layer of the detailed beliefs that we hold that have to do with our own perspective about ourselves or about those immediately around us. And in this space here, you can have limiting beliefs, or you can have beliefs that enable and empower you to be able to do whatever you want to achieve. So in that third bit, we're going to, after we've established what your values or beliefs are, we're going to take an opportunity just to check in and see if there's any limiting beliefs in there. I'm going to share with you one of my own limiting beliefs as an example here. So remember I was talking in the last topic about health and well-being. Well, in my family, my brother was always seen as the one who was a super athlete and could go out and run and jump and was super athletic. And I was seen as the one who wasn't naturally athletic, but was sort of more of a brainiac. And so I had this belief about myself that I couldn't run because, go jogging, because that really wasn't me. I wasn't really an athletic type. I was more of a bookie type. So this is the limiting belief that I had about myself. Well, in my 30s, I had a friend at work who introduced me to running, and I discovered that this was a self-limiting belief I had about myself, that I couldn't run. And through her and my relationship with her and my friendship, I was able to discover about myself that I love running. I absolutely love it. Am I the fastest person in the world? Nope. Am I ever going to be the fastest person? Double no. But do I love it? Yes. And it's something that has become a main aspect of my health plan. So that's just a tiny example of a limiting belief I held about myself. And in this third bit, when we go through it, hopefully we'll be able to drum up some limiting beliefs that you have about yourself and potentially let go of them. Now, just to round off this introduction here, before we get into those three aspects, I'm going to tell you about two individuals who I hold in high esteem. The first is Gandhi. And I'm going to read a quote to you from something that he has to say about belief. Your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values become your destiny. I really love that because it shows how beliefs is something that, and what he wrote is bookended. You've got your beliefs and your values, and the thread of that goes through your entire life and sets up your trajectory into your destiny. I think it's a beautiful word picture of what we're talking about here. And the second person I'm going to read from is a guy called Dr. Tim Keller. Now, Dr. Tim Keller also has a really interesting and compelling take on this idea of belief. He says, in order for someone to have the possibility or the probability to believe something, there have to be three things that are kind of operating together. And he thinks of these things as like rungs on a ladder in order, for a person to sort of step one upon the other and come to a belief about something. The first one is intellectual reasons, so rational, logical arguments for or against a thing. The second is personal, so experiences and how they are interpreted. We can also think about these as emotional reasons. And the third one is social. So the beliefs of a person need to be shared by those they admire around them or those who they hold in high esteem. And this last point is going to be really, really crucial. Hang on to it as we go through the rest of these modules on flow. Because when we start talking about our identity and our purpose, and then eventually thinking about how we establish and maintain a sense of alignment, this is going to be a really intriguing point. So hang on to that, and we'll come to it later. And in essence, when we're thinking about the lived experience of when we fulfill our values, so once we know what our values are and we fulfill those values, you tend to get a sense of accomplishment in life. You tend to have this idea or this sense that you're right on the mark in terms of how you're acting and behaving, and that those things are in alignment with your own personal values and beliefs. Now, there's a few challenges with the concept of values, and I'm just going to walk you through those now. So the first challenge of values is few people are aware consciously of their values, and they tend to live life on autopilot. I mean, sometimes we just do things because we think that they're appropriate or we've seen other people do them, but we're not aware that that's really driven from an internal or value or belief that we have. I mean, the flip side of this first challenge of not being cognizant and aware of your values is what can happen, in the workplace or in relationships. Someone does something or says something and it hits you really funny. You just tense up and it really winds you up. Most of us just can sort of skip over that or write that person off. I mean, there's loads of different sort of available responses that people tend to do. But very rarely do we investigate what has happened there internally in us. What has happened there that has caused a clash between their values or their expressed values via their behavior through to our values? What has happened in that mismatch? The second challenge is that many of our own beliefs or values are established at a really young age and then never sort of checked back in with again. Now, that's okay in some regards, like, gravity or the sun rising, some of these kinds of easy things. But what about Father Christmas? Now, obviously, over the passage of time, most people grow out of their belief in Father Christmas. And I would actually cite what Dr. Tim Keller says, is that at some point it became socially, intellectually, or emotionally untenable for you to believe in Father Christmas as an adult. However, I mean, that's a really silly example, but are there more nuanced, deeper values or beliefs that we hold that might need to evolve or change, and we've just never checked back in with those? I give you the example again of the running one. I had this limiting belief that I held, and it wasn't until I checked back in with it that I was able to let go of that and have a new belief, which is that I can. The third challenge that we can have with our values or beliefs is that oftentimes we only have one way of fulfilling that value or that belief, and that can be problematic. So my younger brother is a total adrenaline junkie, jumps out of planes, goes hot air ballooning, flies planes. He loves that adrenaline high. Well, whenever he was in his early 20s, he took a tiny little prop plane down and buzzed the surface of the Brazos River in Texas between two tree lines to get that adrenaline buzz. And he pulled out and he was fine and he landed his plane and he came and he showed my dad the video. My dad was not very happy. What my brother had done was an extraordinarily dangerous thing. Now, my brother totally values feeling alive and having that adrenaline high. That's the thing that makes him really feel viscerally alive. The way that he chose to fulfill it in that moment was probably less than helpful. So we often find that we don't have as much flexibility as we could in terms of how we fulfill that ultimate value. And the fourth challenge is the prioritization of these values. Now, if you're not checking in with them, it's likely that your prioritization of them are out of date and potentially not ordered as you would if you were really thinking through it. I think the best example is the coronavirus pandemic. You've got lots of people out there in the market doing jobs, and we're all living in a certain way, and then boom, the pandemic hits. And all of a sudden, stuff comes to the top and is prioritized around the healthcare system and looking after ourselves and our families. That prior to the pandemic wasn't the main priority. The main priority might have been sort of economic conditions or factors. So what is the value of values? Well, if you know your values and you're tuned in and in touch with what your values and beliefs are, then you can make better decisions for yourself, make choices that are more aligned to your values and beliefs, which leads in you to a greater sense of fulfillment and happiness. The second thing is you can have greater control over your emotions. So remember, from your values and beliefs, out from that drives your behavior and your emotions. So you've got a better cognition of what's going on in here that will necessarily follow that the stuff that comes after that will be in greater alignment. And I think also, as with the story with my brother, if you know what your values are, you can kind of think through multiple strategies for how you can fulfill that value, and you won't be constrained to just buzzing the top of the Brazos River in order to get that adrenaline fix. Right, so now is the time when we are going to turn to the workbooks and we're going to do a values elicitation exercise. So please open your workbook to the segment on topic 6, values. Great. Now, I hope that you found some interesting nuggets in there whenever you sort of did that values elicitation for yourself in the workbook. The next thing that we're going to look at is how to prioritize your values. I gave you the example a bit ago about how the coronavirus pandemic has forced us on a global scale to reprioritize our value of health and our healthcare system above the economy for the time being. And what I would like for you to do is just to test the priority of your values. And in order to do that, I'd like to put the context around this exercise of the outcome you set in the last topic around cracking the code. So I would like for you to recall the outcome that you set for yourself in the previous topic, cracking the code. And we're going to use that to set the context here to evaluate the priority of your values. Now, in your workbook, you're going to find a section for values prioritization. So what I'd like for you to do is just in that section there that's available to you for your outcome, if you can just write your outcome down in that frame. Now, as you consider that outcome, are there any additional values that you can think come to mind within the context now of the outcome that you've set for yourself? If so, I'd like you to add those to the list now. Now, the next bit we're going to do is from your outcome and the context that we added to this whole picture of your values, what I would like for you to do is to jot down underneath your outcome in pencil what values are necessary or important to you in terms of achieving that outcome. Remember, when we did the values elicitation, you walked through those questions, you wrote down your values, and in the context of your outcome, you may have added some additional ones. But now what I'd like you to do is below your outcome in pencil to pull down the values that are most relevant and important to you in terms of achieving that outcome. Jot them down there in that space in pencil. Great, okay, now that you have jotted those down in pencil, what I would like for you to do is number them in priority order from 1 to whatever number you have there. So if you've got 3, from 1 to 3, if you've got 10, from 1 to 10. So now the last step here with the prioritization of the values is just to test that you have the most useful things in your values here as are relevant for your outcome. And the way that we're going to do this is just to have a little bit of fun with it. So if you look at your list there, there will be some prompts or some questions that you can go through to help test out that you just have the right values in that space. I mean, sometimes once we bring these values to the forefront of our mind, we can kind of hang on to some things and think that they're axioms or things that we absolutely can't let go of. But if we have a little bit of fun with it, we realize actually that isn't something that we care that much about. So let's take, for instance, number 2 on your priority order list. Now, if I were to give you all of the ice cream in all the world, you had unlimited ice cream for the rest of your life, would you be willing to let go of priority 2? So if the answer is yes, then you might have an ice cream addiction, or it might not be a priority in terms of your values. So follow the questions, follow the prompts, try to have a little bit of fun with it, and see if there's any of those axioms or values that you can challenge, and maybe when push comes to shove, it's not a hill you'd really die on. One example of a core value changing for someone is in a recent coaching session. There was someone who prioritized security right at the top of her list. And security was something that she wanted, but she also wanted to start her own business. And this idea of security became a limiting belief because she thought that she couldn't start her own company because that would be at the expense of this core value of security. Well, now she realized in order to go for this dream, to go for this outcome of running her own business, what she needed to do was not get rid of security, but just deprioritize it and in place prioritize something else. So that was a nice, simple switch out. So we weren't getting rid of security altogether. What we were doing is putting the concept of calculated risk as a core value. That enabled her to be able to deprioritize security, remove it as a limiting belief, and then go on to start her own company. Okay, so hopefully you've had a little bit of fun with challenging the priority order of your values or beliefs. And the very last thing that we're going to do in this module is to look at some beliefs of excellence. Now, in my experience and in the experience of Paul and Carrie, my co-founders, what we have found across the charity sector, the major donor fundraising, looking at transformation in large organizations, executive coaching, agile transformation and agile coaching, and within leadership development, is that there are some common threads across all of these areas that provide or form the bedrock. So within any of these disciplines, you can sort of trace them back to some bedrock beliefs of excellence. And I'd like to share those with you. When we're thinking about the inside edge, and we're letting you in on this secret of the kinds of conversations, the kinds of coaching that happens at the executive level within a company or a corporate, these are the sort of beliefs of excellence that we would be discussing. And now we're going to give them to you. The first one is really powerful, and it's just that we must evolve. Now, when you think about that belief, that's something that I hold really dear, and so does Carrie and Paul. We believe that we must evolve. As humans, as a society, as a culture, we must continue to evolve and move forward. This means we might have new insights about the environment and how to take care of it. This might mean that we have new insights about what's prioritized within our society in the midst of a pandemic. For you as an individual, this idea that we must evolve might have led you ultimately to go on this Inside Edge Accelerator course. The second thing that we believe is that it starts from within. So remember, we were talking in this module at the beginning about the beliefs or values being the internal core thing, and then from that flows our emotions and our behaviors, and that's the stuff that people experience in the world around us. In order for us to sort of change anything on the exterior, it's got to start from within. So we have this core belief that it starts from within. Now, the third belief of excellence is kind of off the back of that one, which is that change is possible. There are plenty of people who think, oh, this is just the way that I am. I'm never going to change. I'm never going to, there isn't anything I can do about this. We don't believe that. We believe that change fundamentally is possible. And the fourth one on from that is that personal agility means that you never stay stuck. We've given you lots of examples in this Inside Edge Accelerator course about times in our own personal lives or experiences that we've had where people have been stuck. Someone wanted to start at a company. I wanted to start running. I had a self-limiting belief. Someone thought that security was the main priority. We've talked about other things, people going for a promotion and not getting it. So this sensation of finding ourselves in a position in life where all of a sudden we feel stuck. Well, we believe the ability to choose your lens, be it cause, adopt new strategies and patterns, all contribute to our own personal agility. And if we have personal agility, that means that we never stay stuck. We can come up to an example where a manager says, you don't get to take on any serious projects. I've got personal agility. I can go, that's okay, I'll find another job. And then, on goes the story. Another example of personal agility is from the story that Carrie told about going to meet with her client in the city and seeing that poor guy hit the deck on the side of the train platform. In that moment, she exhibited personal agility by choosing to switch her lens and focus in on how wonderful humanity is, that those guys jumped up from their seat, ran out there, and helped someone in need. That enabled her then to be able to go on and to fulfill the commitment that she had made to the client. So personal agility means that you never stay stuck. And the last one is that fulfillment comes from living out our own unique purpose. We believe that everyone has a unique purpose. And when we find ourselves in that beautiful junction of the thing that we are able to do with grace and actually doing that thing, we find the fulfillment of our purpose. So that's it. That's all about values and beliefs. Now, in the next module, Carrie is going to talk to you all about your own unique identity and purpose.